Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton in Big C. This is Charlton in Big C Sports. Coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe, and China, but there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful November the 5th, 2019, Ground of the Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's crazy down here. We at this crossroads of sports that's going on right now. I think I might have to go out and buy myself another television or two. We got college basketball starting tonight. We got the NFL. We got college football. We got the NBA, the NHL. I don't know where to start, and I always fall asleep before I'm done.
Well, you can't get mad at your eyes, Big C. Sometimes they got overload, and they can shut down when it's time to. I want to say Big C Sports, brought to you by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing and really appreciate the way things are going. Also, Big C Sports can be heard on Xfinity, Comcast Television, and also launching on Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, and other smart TVs all over the universe. I do want to say, as we always do, National Suicide Hotline number, 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255 if you are a veteran or even just a civilian going through things. Big C, your thoughts.
Charlton, it's very imperative that we keep an eye out on those Americans that are in grave need, starting with our military veterans, number one, because the horrific numbers of them that commit suicide every day in this country, Charlton. On an average of 20 veterans lose their life to this horrific disease because they feel that there's no way out, no one to talk to, and they've used up all their resources. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline number there, Charlton, is there to hopefully stem the tide of this horrific disease that's going on in America, not just for our military veterans, but for our everyday layman people, Charlton. And we have so many teenagers and adolescents that are the forgotten people in this country that are also ending their lives to suicide. And, we have to find a way. We talk about getting rid of all diseases in America. We talk about fighting cancer, Charlton. We talk about fighting drug addiction. But we have to fight suicide addiction, Charlton, which has become an epidemic in this country. And the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number there, Charlton, is hopefully going to aid people in stemming them against doing this horrific disease that's been going on, plaguing America forever, seems like.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And everybody knows if you just know a number to call, you simply pick up the phone and call 800-273-8255, 800-273-8255, or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255, and get some help. I know there's a lot going on in the world of sports. Golden State Warriors actually got their first win last night at the new Chase Center over in San Francisco. They were actually wearing the jerseys that said San Francisco, and I believe last night's starting lineup did not have anyone that was a part of the 5 championships they had been to. So sometimes, would you have expected, you get a new arena, Big C, and all the guys who helped you win, not one of them were on the starting lineup for your first victory, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's just a sign of times that change in the NBA, Charlton, through free agents, through injury. Yep. All of these things occur. When you build an arena, you can't always forecast what your future is going to be, and the Golden State Warriors had a run that made history in the NBA. They made the NBA exciting. If you look at where the NBA is now, Charlton, there was no favorite like the Golden State Warriors that everybody picked to be in the championship, and then whoever else showed up. They were great for basketball over a 5-year span.
Yeah, and in fact, and there was some local media saying that, and this happens in any situation because we've seen it. I think about 20, maybe 30 years ago, there was a push to get out of the downtown areas and go out to the suburbs. I know the Coliseum was built back in the 60s, so maybe that's not in downtown Oakland. And then if you look at where all the ballparks have been, they were somewhat in downtowns, and they moved them out to the suburbs. I think you look at the Washington Redskins, they did that. They were downtown, and now they moved them out to the suburbs. Same thing with the 49ers. They were at least in San Francisco, and they moved them out to the suburbs down in Santa Clara. But if you look at what happened with Golden State, they moved really, you could say, suburban Oakland to almost the heart of the financial center in downtown San Francisco, just about a mile off of the Bay Bridge. So now a lot of teams are coming back to the parts of the city where they left 30 and 40 years ago. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, a reason for that, Charlton, is pure economics. Those people that were living in that downtown area do not like to commute out to games, Charlton, and so bringing that arena into the downtown, and it's a multi-purpose arena. It's not just for basketball. The Golden State Warriors will use that arena less than anybody, Charlton. It's scheduled to have some 260 events.
Yep.
The Golden State Warriors will only play 41 regular season games there, so they're really not even the number one tenant.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? And most people don't think about that. Even Golden One Center up in Sacramento, they have 81 games because they haven't made the playoffs in many, many moons. But they have that arena in operation over 300 times a year for concerts and other things that go on around the entertainment industry. But it's all great when you have something new. But it's also interesting when you look up and you don't see sold-out crowds, and that's rare for Golden State. Big C, I can't say it's the price. There's a lot of money, but people don't show up when you don't win as much. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they don't show up, but, you got personal seat license, so people have already purchased those tickets, Charlton. They purchased the luxury boxes. It's just a down year for the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, that's true. So we hope that everything gets back on track, and I'm sure that it will sometime soon. I want to get right in to Big C's NFL Top 10 Power Rankings. And before we even get into that, I'm looking at the Black Cat. They always say Black Cats are bad luck, and I guess they've always said something about black was bad luck. Even some people, if that's the case, then looking outside at the universe would be bad luck because the sky is black. So no one can say that the thing black is bad luck. But sometimes there's a lot of things that go into black and white when you look at the dictionary, what those colors mean. But when the Black Cat showed up, the Giants were actually playing good football. When the Black Cat showed up, Big C, it was the boys from Texas that played a little bit better. Even though it wasn't a great game, they played better. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that cat was the most exciting part of the game for the Giants last night, Charlton.
Yeah.
But it most likely was an omen also of bad things to come the rest of the way of the season. The game got out of hand after that, and even the cat made the best moves of the night, Charlton. He got there and he did that little stutter step at the goal line before going over. So not only was he showboating, but he taunted everybody in getting it out of that game, Charlton. But when you look at the New York Giants and the slide that they've been on the last 5 games, I mean, everybody was on the rave of Daniel Jones, that he had arrived. And, I mean, even the media is still talking about his lineage, playing under David Cutcliffe at Duke, who coached the Manning brothers, and saying that he was the same type of quarterback that both of those legendary quarterbacks are. I think that the New York Giants and Daniel Jones are a long way away from that legacy, Charlton. He shows constant signs of struggle every game. I mean, he really struggles in trying to get the ball more than 35 yards down the field. He lacks accuracy on the deep ball.
Yeah.
He has become a check-down quarterback, which is very easy to defense. If you saw what Dallas was doing last night, they played a lot of cover zero against the Giants because Daniel Jones wasn't going to push the ball down the field. He's checking down. He was even the team's leading rusher last night. You got Saquon Barkley on the team. This shows that this young man just doesn't have a grasp of what's going on right now in the NFL.
You know how the universe can do things that brings about poetic justice. And I wish everybody the best. It's tough to make a roster in that league. But his last pass was deflected, fumbled, and then picked up and scooped and run off for a touchdown. And I thought that was, poetic because their coach was saying to the media, where are these guys that said he wasn't a good quarterback? And again, we want everyone to succeed, but sometimes you just got to trust what your eyes show you. Wasn't that poetic that his last attempt at a pass was a fumble return for a fumble six? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, this has been what's gone on with him after that first 2 games he started. I mean, the media got blindsided in his first start against Tampa because the Tampa kicker missed 4 kicks in that game, 3 kicks in that game, Charlton, which would have easily given Tampa the win. Daniel Jones got all the accolades as quarterback should in team victories, Charlton. but it was short-lived. He's won 2 games, his first 2 games as a starter, but he's lost his last 5. And it's amazing that all those people who were singing his praise in the first 2 games that he quarterbacks this NFL season, Charlton, are not singing his praise now. They're saying, well, he's struggling.
Yeah.
Well, he struggled in those first 2 games. The Giants luckily won those games. They beat the Washington Redskins and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wow, 2 powerhouses in the NFL.
2 powerhouses in the NFL. I wanna ask your thoughts on Dak Prescott, because he looked good last night, especially when you compare him to they just keep winning. Even they had a stretch of a couple of games where they did not look good, a lot of turnovers and people were dropping catches, but they can't blame the quarterback on that. But he had hooked up pretty nicely with Cooper, and he ran, I think it was about 47 or 57 yards for a touchdown. But there was also a receiver, I can't remember his name, but I think it was number 13, and they showed the
Michael Gallup.
And he galloped over the goal line, but I did not know the NFL actually had a camera that was, sunk into the turf looking up at the universe, Big C. That was one of the more incredible plays I had seen in some time. Your thoughts?
Well, that pylon cam exists in the NFL and in college football. It's something that was integrated 2 years ago into the games, and when you had judgmental calls, that you could go to that camera and get the eyesight of what actually occurred, because everything is under replay now.
Yeah.
But as you look at Dak Prescott and the maturation of Dak Prescott as this season has gone on, and even throughout his career, he's the most efficient passer in the NFL. Everyone's talking about Russell Wilson being the MVP. Everyone's singing the accolades of Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
We know what Patrick Mahomes does when he's healthy.
Yeah.
But when we look at the body of work of what Dak Prescott has done in leading the Dallas Cowboys, everyone says, well, without Ezekiel Elliott, that's a nice compliment to have both of those guys, the running back and the quarterback. But Dak Prescott is the one handing the ball off to Ezekiel Elliott, as well as passing the ball to the proper receivers, Charlton. He started out the game where he could have folded his tent, where his first pass was an interception, turnover, and the Giants scored off it. But what I looked at him, and I respect so much about Dak, that you look at him and Baker Mayfield. If Baker Mayfield had thrown that interception, he would have been pointing receivers at teammates, yelling at him. Dak Prescott went to everybody and said, boys, that's on me.
Yeah.
I made that mistake. I will not do it again the rest of the night. And he did not do it, Charlton, and Dallas came out victorious.
Yeah, it was a good game for Dallas to just keep winning, and for the Giants again. And maybe sometime the cat came in looking for Eli Manning, but did you notice now, New York, New Jersey, same area, that cat looked like it was overweight. It didn't look like it was an alley cat starving. That cat had a big old belly, Big C. Did you see that, or was it just my eyes? Your thoughts?
Well, you look at that feral cat, Charlton, out there where he lives. There's a lot of rats in New York, New Jersey area, Charlton. Yeah. So he has a buffet every night to choose from.
Yeah, I think he's looking for some people to eat. Realize those guys are much bigger in person than they are on TV. He was coming to eat some NFL football players, but it's all fair, love, and war. Big C, I want to get into Big C's top 10 NFL power rankings. I'll throw them out there and just get your thoughts, and everyone has their opinion. Number 10, I would say the Buffalo Bills. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, we're trying to find out if the Bills are real or pretenders, Charlton. They've lost 2 games on the season. They've gotten a great defense out of this organization this year, Charlton. They're doing just enough to win at quarterback. As long as Allen doesn't make mistakes, they will be a solid playoff team.
And now a team that's atop the NFC East, and that's the Dallas Cowboys. This team can be a lot better. They have everything they need. They just got to be more consistent and catching balls when they're thrown to them. Give me your thoughts on Dallas coming in at number 9, Big C.
Well, that's the thing you talk about, consistency with the Dallas Cowboys. This has been an up-and-down team, Charlton. When you look at the losses that they've suffered this year, they should have easily won those games. The last time they were in New York, and they lost to the Jets.
Wow.
A few slips here and there and bad calls by the officials cost them that game, Charlton. But the games that they've lost, they seem to be lackluster mentally in those games, Charlton. Yeah. And I think they might be on track with the stretch they're getting ready to go through.
Well, there's another team that a lot of people feel that might be the best team, and I wonder if it's going to cost the Houston Texans coming in at number 8 when they had Deshaun Watson. He was being wrestled to the ground, but everyone knows it's not over for this young man. He can throw the ball almost laying sideways, and they lost a touchdown in a game because of it. I wonder if that will bite them. But bringing in the Houston Texans at number 8, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, people thought that they might slip in this past week, Charlton, and going across over to London to play but Deshaun Watson proved he wasn't going to let his team down. And the defense played much better than what is expected. Even after they lost J.J. Watt, Charlton, they did not allow a touchdown in this last game. They should go ahead on and win that division because Jacoby Brissett was banged up a little bit in Indianapolis.
Yeah, banged up in Indianapolis, and we don't know. Even if he comes back, he's going to have a hitch in his giddy up. We wish him nothing but the best, but I'm looking at this Houston team, and they look incredible, especially with that quarterback and they're getting. Number 7, I'll bring it into the Green Bay Packers. Discount double-check himself. In Los Angeles, actually Carson, California, against the L.A. Chargers, the Packers look like they left their emotion back in Green Bay. They played without emotion, it seemed, because they made the Chargers look like a good team, and the Chargers have potential, but they're not as good as they looked on TV. But maybe just Green Bay was flat. You don't expect that, but I'll still put them number 7. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Chargers are getting healthy right now. You think about Melvin Gordon. This is his 4th game back. It's just like the first few games he played, Charlton, was his preseason because he had no work in. Now he's gotten his timing back with the offense. The defense has gotten healthy, Charlton. When you think about now that they have their complement of defensive players on the defensive line, they put pressure on Aaron Rodgers all game long. The Green Bay Packers looked like they did not want to be in a physical contest, and that's what the San Diego, well, I keep saying that, the Chargers did to them. They hit them in the mouth, and Green Bay folded like a tent, and that dropped them down to that position.
They are who we thought they were, the Dennis Green said. Big C, the number 6, the Big C's top 10 NFL, counting down from 10 to 1. I'm going to say the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think they won this game because the Vikings stopped handing off to Dalvin Cook the way they should have. Just my opinion. But this game, without Patrick Mahomes, they found a way to get a win at Arrowhead. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they won that game, Charlton, because Kirk Cousins is who Kirk Cousins is.
Yeah.
He's won one road game with a team with a winning against a team with a winning record since he's been the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings. So he was status quo in this game. Matt Moore, you got to take your hat off to that young man, Charlton.
Yep.
He was a substitute school teacher last year, out of football completely. Andy Reid brought him back into Kansas City, and he was able to guide this team, Charlton, without Patrick Mahomes to a victory. They had lost 3 consecutive games at home. Now they see him back on track. Mr. Mahomes will be back.
I love Patrick Mahomes' name, Big Z. I really like those discount double-check commercials where he shows up and he and Aaron Rodgers, and then they have this agent that's trying to get both of their business, Big C. I thought that was pretty good. I want to bring it to Big C's top 10 NFL power rankings, number 5. The Seattle Seahawks, and boy, do they have a big game in the Bay Area coming up against the 49ers. They're competing for first place in the NFC West. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you talk about them playing against the 49ers, Charlton, but that was an epic game that they played against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has been in some of the biggest shootouts in the NFL this year. I like what Bruce Arians has done with that team. They just need to find a way not to turn over the football because when Jameis Winston is right, he is right. But we see when Russell Wilson is right, there's no one better than he is right now in the NFL. Chris Carson has done a marvelous job in running the football. And when you think about the defense has done enough in Seattle. They need a little more help on the back end and the secondary.
Yeah.
But Russell Wilson is a magician right now with no parallels in the NFL.
The number 4 team, and everybody thought they were number 1, but you could tell, the New England Patriots, the Patriots are always going to be the favorite until somebody knocks them off of that purse, Big C. But everyone could tell just looking at them play, even though their defense was phenomenal. When you look at the win total of the teams they were beating, it got a little bit different when they played against Baltimore, at least in Game 1. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when I look at the Patriots in this loss to Baltimore, Charlton, which dropped them finally from number 1 team in the NFL, the Patriots are lacking offensive explosion. They have nobody that can go over the top and take the top off the defense right now. When you look at Brady and this offense having to score, they have to have sustained drives. We haven't seen a big play from the Patriots in some time. Was a 60, 70-yard play offensively. So that's their Achilles heel right now. The defense got a little exposed like a lot of defensive has against Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
But I give Bill Belichick this. You beat me once, yes, I weren't prepared for you. You beat me twice, you're pretty damn good. I don't think anybody can beat them twice in a season.
Well, it's amazing when I looked at, just watching tape over the years. I think it was a 2012 season when the 49ers went back there and won a 28-21 game or 35-27, somewhere in there. And Colin Kaepernick looking as much like Jackson is any quarterback that I've seen go against the Patriots. And maybe they just have a problem facing that type of athlete, but we'll see. You can't get Belichick twice, it seems, Big C, unless you knew they Giants in the Super Bowl. Number 3, Big C's NFL top 10. The New Orleans Saints. Who that say they're going to beat them Saints, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, right now, I mean, it would be very easy to make a compelling stance that New Orleans is the best team in the NFL. The one game they lost, Charlton, to the Rams was when Drew Brees got hurt during the game.
Yeah.
But they haven't missed a stride since then. Teddy Bridgewater, there should be some award up for Teddy Bridgewater winning 5 consecutive games at the end of the season, Charlton, keeping New Orleans on task.
Yeah.
Now that they have Drew Brees back, they're going to get Alvin Kamara back, and this defense has been better than advertised in New Orleans. It's hard cry not to even say that they're not the 1A team in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's amazing how the NFL can shape up this year, because now we have the Baltimore Ravens, and I don't know how they lost to Cleveland when they lost to Cleveland earlier in the year, Big C, and then seeing what they did to the Cleveland, that was they didn't show up. But then against New England, they showed who they really are. So I'm going to put the Baltimore Ravens at number 2, not because they beat the Patriots, but because they went out to Seattle and beat one of the top teams in the NFC in a difficult place to win. And then they come home and they take on a New England team that's just beaten everybody since last year, Big C. And they did it in almost a blowout fashion, minus 2 special team turnovers, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the maturation of the Baltimore Ravens, that Greg Roman has this offense playing at a high tempo, and the defense has been outstanding. When you think about John Harbaugh, he started out his career in the NFL as a special teams coach. He's one of the few special teams coaches to ever get a head coaching job. But he has an organization that believes in him. Per man, everybody, offensive, defensive, special teams, they all bought into what John Harbaugh has done. They all bought into Lamar Jackson, a very humble, successful pro quarterback, Charlton. He says and does all the right things from a leadership perspective when you compare him to all the other young quarterbacks in the NFL. This guy eventually will win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, it's just amazing watching how, again, he's only completed about 16 games. So imagine had he played all 16 games as a rookie, Big C. He would just be at 16 games right now. Really impressed with this guy and what he's learned. I mean, really impressed. Just as an athlete, as a quarterback, as a leader, he says the right things. He's very humble. He can beat you with his legs, beat you with his arms, beat you with his brain, and he's really difficult to handle. I want to take up to a team. The last time the Ravens were actually in the Super Bowl, they met the same San Francisco 49er unit, but not the same players, of course. But this team looking for a fistful of gold. They have 5 Super Bowl championships, the 49ers, in their history. And now they have a team just like the Patriots. They really haven't been tested. But they will get a test against Seattle coming up this week. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, in their last game, their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, played his best game of the season down in the desert against the Cardinals, where he threw the 4 touchdown passes. We've all heard about the stalwart defense that they've had, the tremendous defensive front that can get after opposing quarterbacks. Their running game has been solid. They had the second-best running game in the NFL, Charlton. And by them virtually being the only undefeated team left, you have to make them the number 1 team in the NFL.
Yeah, I really like the way that they've played. And I know this kid called Bosa came in with a lot of junk, to his name. But I think he's turned it around, because if you can play, then people overlook a lot of things, and everybody has a chance to make excuses and also make mistakes. I want to jump also, as we're talking about NFL, I want to get on the top 7 free agents in NFL quarterbacks coming up for the 2020 season. And as you know, in a league where it's performance-based, for the most part, they're going to go with guys they like. But in the top 7 NFL free agent quarterbacks for 2020, Tom Brady, New England Patriots. You have Drew Brees for the New Orleans Saints. And then we'll start with Dak Prescott for the Dallas Cowboys. I want to get your thoughts on those 3, and then we'll come back and finish with the other Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at those 3 quarterbacks you named, Charlton, all 3 of them are leading their divisions. Tom Brady, we know his history in New England, as well as Drew Brees. Both of those quarterbacks have led their teams to Super Bowl victories, Charlton. Dak Prescott is one of the up-and-coming superstar young quarterbacks of the NFL, the most efficient passer in the NFL right now, and he's going to be a free agent as well as those other 2 at the end of the season.
Yeah, really impressed with them. And now you look at Phillip Rivers, who seemed a little bit tired until Green Bay showed up. It's amazing how there was so much talk that maybe this is Phillip Rivers' last year, and he looked like the freshman, and then Discount Double Check looked like he was unfresh. So Phillip Rivers with the Chargers, when you talk about top free agents in the NFL quarterbacking 2020 coming up, Teddy Bridgewater, all he's done is win, hasn't done anything to cost the New Orleans Saints. And then you look at Marcus Mariota, and everybody knows that this guy has been in and out of the thick of things, but I want to get your thoughts on them, and then I want to finish with one player by himself. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, I like Teddy Bridgewater when you mention all those quarterbacks. Not many people realize that Teddy Bridgewater, in his last 21 starts in the NFL, is that he's 15-6 as a starting quarterback with the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints. So, Charlton, this is a guy who will be on the free agent market, and when you look at New Orleans, you got to let one of those guys go to keep the other. Drew Brees a free agent, Teddy Bridgewater's a free agent, Charlton. It's a wealth of riches out there in the free agent market for quarterbacks in the 2020 season.
Yeah, they're not going to let go of Drew Brees just because of what he's meant to that great organization down there on the Bayou, Big C. I want to finish with Jameis Winston. I remember watching him come out of Florida State, how he played at Florida State. Just a dominant quarterback, a guy that could also run around in the pocket and buy you time. They were loaded with athletes back then. I remember they lost in a Rose Bowl. They lost to Oregon when we had the Final Four for college football. But I've always thought that his best hope would be to have a coach like Bruce Arians, who's a quarterback whisperer. You know what he's done with some quarterbacks over the years. But Jameis Winston, his biggest problem sometimes has been, poor decision-making, not knowing when to just lay his head forward and focus on football, always getting caught up in other issues, it seems. And sometimes it doesn't go away. But give me your thought on him. I think he has so much potential, but sometimes people run out of hope and having patience. Big C, your thoughts.
Well, his problem is he doesn't seem to be a student of the game. He's making a lot of bad mental errors on the field, Charlton. The turnovers have plagued him throughout his career. You look at him right now, he's one of the most turnover-laden quarterbacks starting in the NFL. This is something that can't keep you in the starting position or in the big free agent market in the NFL. So I don't know if he's going to be in Tampa this coming year, Charlton. There's a lot of quarterbacks coming in the draft, and there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are free agents. They have great personnel in Tampa. Just the quarterback is not delivering the goods.
Well, delivering the goods. We'll talk about more delivering the goods. We're going to come up on what's called the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. And we're going to take that pause and come back and talk more about some top passing performances for NFL quarterbacks. We'll take that break, and we hope that you'll come back and join us. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around the world on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on my two favorite apps called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. Also launching on Xfinity Comcast Television. You can follow Big C Sports. Launching on Roku TV, Fire TV, Amazon TV, and other smart TVs all over the universe. I want to get into Big C's NFL Week 9 top passing performances, and it's amazing. They should have a stat, or maybe we'll come up with it, for how many yards a quarterback lost because the receiver dropped a pass that was in his hands, not overthrown, but in his hands. Maybe we'll come up with that coming up for the playoffs, Big C. But you look at #1, Matthew Stafford, for the Detroit Lions, 26 of 41, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. That good boy had 406 yards, but they were coming from behind for a lot of them. Your thoughts?
And that's been the story of Matthew Stafford's career, Charlton. You got all those yards, 400-plus yards passing. You can't propel your team to a victory. But everyone talks about the strength of his arm, not his winning ability.
And I just want to get on. I mean, it turned out fine, but there was a time they were down on the goal line in front of the black hole, and the clock was running. Detroit was in. They were in disarray. And then John Gruden called a timeout to give them more time to recoup. I want to get your thoughts. Do you make sense of that, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, that was one of those misgivings that turned out great for the Raiders in the end, Charlton, in winning the game. But Detroit was a team that seemed to be in disarray, and you think that Matt Patricia would be a little more organized coming out of that New England organization.
Yeah, you would think so. Big C, Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks are just a team. They can skate by and get a win. They cannot play well and get a win. 29-43, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 378 yards. Big C, your thoughts?
This was the mantra for the Seattle Seahawks all year long, Charlton. Don't blow anybody away. Just do enough to win. Russell Wilson does enough to win every week. 5 touchdown passes, no interceptions. What an outstanding performance in an overtime victory against Tampa Bay.
He's like Muhammad Ali in the rope-a-dope, and you think, oh, man, Ali's tired. The foreman's throwing some body blows, and Ali's laying on the ropes, Big C. And then he'd grab them like they're rope-a-dope. He was holding them to make him punch himself out, and it seems like Seattle has that same kind of ability with the great Russell Wilson. Number 3, Jameis Winston, Tampa Bay. He was 29-44, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He threw for 355 yards. He actually had a good game against Seattle. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, a very solid performance, Charlton, but just not enough to get his team over the hump in the end, and he fell short in overtime when his team had an opportunity for a victory.
I just think he has so much potential, but he's got to stay focused, like the late Al Davis used to say. Number 4, Ryan Tannehill, Tennessee, 27-39, 1 touchdown, but he had 2 picks, even though he threw for 331 yards. Big C, your thoughts?
It's something about the Tennessee offense. This is the same thing that Marcus Mariota was doing, Charlton, turning over the football.
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill throws a couple touchdowns. He throws a couple picks to the opposing team, and Carolina came out with a big victory.
They do a lot of that shining down in the South, Big C. Maybe some guys, they're not lucid when they come to the game, but you never know. I would say number 5, Jimmy Garoppolo, San Francisco 49ers, 28-37, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That good old boy threw for 317 yards. I think they found their stride when they stopped having to go over the top for 40 and 50-yard passes. Let them do what Montana did. Give me a 5 to 15-yard pattern and let them get the yak. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, on a night, Charlton, when they didn't have their running game down in the desert, they asked a little more from Jimmy Garoppolo to complete a few more passes. And he delivered that, Charlton, with 4 touchdown passes and over 300 yards through the air and kept San Francisco with a perfect record.
Yeah, a perfect record. And it's amazing when you think about how – I just want to get your thoughts again on Kyler Murray, because he wasn't supposed to be in this class. But this Niner team, they had a hard time pulling out this win. And I'm not saying if you're in the NFL you're playing like a rookie because you are a rookie. But Murray, imagine him when he has another year under his belt. I'm sure whatever the 49ers do, they got to do it now, because that team in Arizona – they're coming up. I want to just get your thoughts on something before we get into a few more thoughts on NFL. And social media, I'm not a big social media guy. In fact, I asked my son, to tell me about social media. Teenagers tend to know that stuff. But when Troy Aikman and Tony Dungy complained about some of the officiating on social media, I remember Troy Aikman did it a couple of weeks ago and said there were so many flags being thrown, he was going to go to bed. And then Tony Dungy saying the same thing. We know this challenge came in because the Rams and also the Saints last year in the NFC Championship game, there were so many people mad. They said, we got to do something. But when you start overturning calls, you actually can throw your officiating under the bus. Those are the thoughts of Tony Dungy. And I somewhat agree, but you still want to get it right, Big C, even if you do throw people under the bus. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if the NFL will ever get it right, Charlton, because you're asking an outside entity to intervene and tell you what you're not supposed to see or see.
Yeah.
You should not have to call to New York. It should be enough confidence on the head official there on the sideline during the game, Charlton, to look at the monitor and let us know what we've seen on television is correct or incorrect.
Yeah.
We don't need a person from New York telling them, no, don't overturn the call or go with the call.
Yeah.
But I think that the most egregious part about the officiating, they need to put a time clock on it, just like you have a play clock. You have 40 seconds to go through it to get a playoff. Otherwise, you get a delay of the game.
Yeah.
That's what the officials need to be under the same auspices. The players have to operate under a 40-second play clock. The officials should have to operate under a 40-second play clock when they go under the hood Not this 2-minute ordeal saying, well, we still can't figure it out.
Yeah.
You have 40 seconds to make a decision
Yeah.
or the call stands.
Yeah, you can see it right away at home, and then you watch them take 4 or 5 minutes. It's amazing. NFL coaches thinking about challenging. There's some NFL coaches, Big C, on the hot seat. It may not be around for the 2020 season. You look at Dan Quinn. He has an NFC Championship game under his belt, Big C. Also a Super Bowl appearance, Atlanta Falcons. Outside of the scrapping of the Eagles with a 24-21 victory, they would be 0-8. I know ifs and would have and could have and should have, but Arthur Blank can't be too happy with just one win at the Midway Park. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Nelson Aguilar is the only reason that Dan Quinn is still employed right now in Atlanta. Those 2 drop passes in the end zone, Charlton, otherwise the Falcons would be 0-8, and there would be no saving of Dan Quinn at any point during the halfway point of the season.
I want to take you up to New York. They say if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. In New York City, Adam Gates, the New York Jets, a couple of slips in the back caused by the officials. The Jets would also be 0-8. And on top of that, how am I to be concerned about some guy who's playing his dream game? But Sam Darnold's just not ready. And it doesn't seem like the coach is that affected by it as much. It just seems like they're not. Maybe they're all seeing ghosts. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there was an excuse last year in New York that Todd Bowles wasn't the right coach for Sam Darnold's development. Then they bring in Adam Gates. Sam Darnold got worse.
Yeah.
Was it the coach or was it Sam Darnold?
Isn't that something? And are they going to ask Todd Bowles to come back and say, hey, we were wrong. We want to get your job back. At least he had some wins on the season, Big C. But media beat him up too, Todd Bowles. I'll never forget how they beat him up. They kept saying he's not the guy to develop Sam Darnold. And those guys now, a lot of them are on TV programs. They don't say how they were wrong. Freddie Kitchens, the Cleveland Browns, 2-6. It proves that. The players on paper, they don't play games, but the media still loves Cleveland. The media, mainstream, like we say, Google it. Because if we're wrong, they can Google what we're saying. We can't hide it. You can't redact it. It's out there. But there's a lot of mainstream broadcasters. They don't tell you how they were wrong. In fact, Cleveland's been on TV as much as teams that win, and they have 2 wins on the season. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there were a lot of people that had Cleveland penciled into the Super Bowl. I recall myself saying before the season started, paper doesn't play on a football field, Charlton. Matter of fact, it gets kind of messed up. I think players run through it at the beginning of games. I know in high schools they do. Break the paper in half. That's what the Cleveland Browns were. They are a paper NFL team, Charlton. They are not a talent-laden team on the field. They're a talent-laden team on paper, and you have a coach that they'll be scratching out his name at the end of the year.
You know, I still think about it. No one wants to say so much to be fired. Nobody really wants to say that at all. It's based on your performance. But I just got to say, because as a person of color, when often the Arizona coach, they got fired after 1 year with the Cardinals. And then
Steve Wilkes.
And then you look at Lewis had been to the playoffs, I think 8 times in his career over in Cincinnati, and people just were calling for him to be gone. I remember covering the Minnesota Vikings back in the late 90s when they came to San Francisco, and there were some people on Fox, the TV crew, that were complaining about Dennis Green can't win the big game. He can't win the big game. And all he did was take them to the playoffs. And if it was not for a kick that went awry, they would have been in the Super Bowl playing against the Denver Broncos, but the Atlanta Falcons went. I'll never forget that. And now look at Cincinnati. You look at Zach Taylor, Big C. Cincinnati Bengals, they're 0-8. And you still can't blame Marvin Lewis, but there's some people saying, well, at least they're in the right direction. How is 0-8 in the right direction, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, at no point in Marvin Lewis's career in Cincinnati did he go 0-8 to start a season. Zach Taylor, they brought him in. He's supposed to be this offensive guru that learned under Sean McVay in Los Angeles, Charlton. I don't know what he learned because he's come to Cincinnati and they become a very abysmal organization.
Yeah. I still want the best. And I know Ohio's a hotbed for football. It's amazing when the Ohio State Buckeyes are dominating a league and you have an NFL football team there that's not even playoff potential. I mean, everyone has potential.
Well, think about this, Charlton.
Yeah.
9 weeks into the season, you have the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. Combined record between these two teams, Charlton, combined record
is 2-6.
and what, 17?
2 and 16, yeah.
2 and 16?
Yeah, yep. Well, I admit Ohio State had more wins than that after 2 weeks, Big C, but it's all fair love and war. I want to get to a guy by the name of Vic Fangio. And I've always liked Denver. There's something about that Denver Broncos football program up there in the Mile High City. The Denver Broncos at 3 and 6 doesn't look like Vance Joseph was a bad coach after all. I remember they just wanted to get rid of this guy. And I'm going to say it because a lot of people don't. I think black men are the last hired and the first fired in almost any profession. That's just and you can Google, maybe I'm wrong. But when you replace guys who were at least getting their team knocking on the door of the playoffs, and you replace them with that cronyism and that nepotism. You know, nepotism, you're hiring guys that you have in your family. Cronyism, you're hiring your friends. And it's about who you get along with. The good old boy network. This is what it is. We're seeing it right now. Vic Fangio, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Nick Fangio, I mean, they brought him in as a defensive-minded coach, Charlton. They had a great defense in Denver. That defense has gotten horrifically worse since he's been around. Joe Flacco, they brought him in. He was a cast-off from Baltimore. They told everybody he couldn't play, and they still brought him in. But John Elway is good for picking up quarterbacks off the scrap heap.
Yeah.
And that's been the success of the Denver Broncos other than Peyton Manning. But players wanted to play with Peyton Manning. He hasn't brought in anybody else other than Peyton Manning that players wanted to play with.
Yeah. And then speaking of Manning, I felt for Daniel Jones last night because when someone's in over their head, if you're a boxer, you say, throw in the towel. And I thought that Nick Diaz fight was stopped too soon. Of course, he was bleeding, but he always bleeds. But they stopped it. I thought if it were in California or Las Vegas, it would have lasted longer. But going back to the NFL and coaches that are on the hot seat for the 2020 season, you look at New York, and the New York Giants, Pat Shurmur, has his quarterback of the future. And when you saw what happened last night, it's as if they were still just beating this guy up. The Dallas Cowboys, I think they had 4 or 5 sacks last night. Could have had more because Jones is a sitting target. If you were to look at that performance compared to what happens with Lamar Jackson, that right now at Baltimore, a lot of those sacks Jackson would have gotten away from, would have run out of the pocket, would have just seen it with his third eye, Big C. And now you have 2 wins, 6 losses, and Shurmur, there's no rumors, at least yet, about him not being the right guy. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know if he's going to be around to see the future of the New York Giants develop, Charlton. You know, if you look at Sherman's the past 2 years, the lackluster performance he had with Eli Manning, and now Daniel Jones has come back down to earth, and all the naysayers were right, Charlton, that he is not the best quarterback to be drafted in the number 6 overall pick in the NFL draft last year.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. I love seeing when the Cowboys and Giants play. MetLife Stadium was packed. Even the Black Cat. I wonder if that was a prop for someone to get some attention off of Daniel Jones. I still think that was a big fat cat. He was looking for something to eat. And football players look smaller on TV than they do in person. And do you think that had anything to do with the cat turning around? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, Charlton, there's a lot of hot dogs and scraps dropped up in the stands, and he was probably living up under the stands and hoping to pick 1 or 2 of those up. Got overzealous and ran out on the field.
That is so funny, Big Z. I wanna say it's all fair and love and war. We love NFL football, and I love how we're starting to shape up and see who's actually going to be a part of this playoff chase coming up in a couple of weeks. I want to jump it over to the world of Major League Baseball. And when you think about MVP awards, Big C's thoughts, I want to say the Los Angeles Angels outfielder Mike Trout, even though he was injured, a lot of people consider him the best player in baseball. I know everybody has their opinion. And then you have the Houston Astros third baseman Alex Bergman, been in the World Series 2 of the last 3 years. Oakland Athletics shortstop Marcus Semien. And then the finalists for the American League MVP. I mean, these guys are the final choices. But you also, in my opinion, when you look at a player to be the top player in the MVP of the league, I want to look at guys that are actually in the playoffs or at least the World Series. My choice would be Alex Bergman. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I'm glad that Major League Baseball waited till the postseason was over to give out these awards, whether they were Golden Gloves or MVP candidates, Charlton. Alex Bergman is a solid choice for the Houston Astros. Mike Trout was a leader up until he had that foot injury and foot surgery to knock him out. But it's going to be a close race.
Yeah, it will be a close race. And when I just look at what happened and going, I think they won 107 regular season games when you're the Astros. You know, when you got the bullseye on your chest, if you're in football, you always face your opponent's best efforts. But when you have the pitching that they had down there in Houston, this is a team that will most likely be at least chasing for the ALCS again next year. I wouldn't put it past them, Big C. I want to go to the Washington Nationals. When you think about third baseman Anthony Rendon, and then Los Angeles Dodgers outfielder Cody Bellinger, Milwaukee Brewers outfielder Christian Yelich, the guy's amazing until he had an injury. They're the top three for the National League MVP honors. And again, I'm biased for guys that have it on the field. And so I'm looking at Washington Nationals third baseman Anthony Rendon. I know Cody Bellinger's more of the sexy name because he's in a bigger media market with the Dodgers. And then Yelich, he was doing his thing throughout the year as well. But give me Big C's thoughts on who you like to be chosen for that award, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, if Yelich hadn't been injured like Trout, they both would have run away with those MVP titles, Charlton. But when I look at Rendon in Washington, without him, they would not have been hoisting that World Series trophy. Got to give him some extra kudos just for that.
Yeah, and let me say, when you look at the Dodgers, because they're so loaded, and I'm glad they're going to keep their skipper around because he's the glue that holds it together. This is a team like the Astros may see them again in another World Series in the next year or two. Really looking forward to that. I want to get into Major League Baseball. Big C's thoughts on the Cy Young Award finalists. In the American League, the Astros, it's still shocking to say this, to not have Garrett Cole even show up in a Game 7 at some point in time. Get him out there earlier than later. We know Greinke had his thing going, but I would think Greinke and then Cole, but obviously management thought different. But I like Garrett Cole being in that conversation, even though he's no longer going to be with the Astros. Justin Verlander, I mean, you think about him, how dominant he's been, but when it comes to just winning things, that sometimes he has a hitch in his giddy up in the playoffs. Tampa Bay Rays, Charlie Morton, these are three finalists. Think about what the Rays did when they came out to Oakland in front of 50,000 for the first time in many moons at the Coliseum. And they went back and they beat them and had a chance to do more damage to Houston, but Houston's pitching eventually won out. Give me your thoughts on who you like for the Cy Young, Big C, your thoughts.
You know, I really like Morton playing in that small market down in Tampa Bay. Garrett Cole may get the award because he had the 19 consecutive games without a loss, but Morton, I think, just on hands down, should win the award.
Well, when you go over to the National League, and everybody likes American League or National League baseball, it just depends on how they look at things. The New York Jets, I think one of the guys with the coolest name when you go Jacob DeGrom. Jacob DeGrom, obviously you want to have his name in there just for the pronunciation of it. And then the Washington Nationals, Max Scherzer, that good boy earned it. He showed that he was a dominant pitcher. He throws strikes, not balls. Doesn't try to get you to chase. He just throws it right by you. And then the LA Dodgers, you look at Hyun-Jin Ryu, he's amazing. He doesn't have the cachet that you have with some of the other, pitchers out there in Dodger land. Clayton Kershaw, the name one. I still think if Kershaw didn't come in, the Dodgers would have found a way to get into the World Series, but that's my opinion. Hyun-Jin Ryu is the best pitcher on that team, that's maybe the most unknown on that team. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, everybody in major leagues know who Ryu is, Charlton. He led the major leagues in ERA. I look at DeGrom, who led Major League Baseball in strikeouts. But when you look at Scherzer, he hosted the World Series trophy. It's anybody's choice, all equally qualified.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can go through the whole season, and everybody has their favorite players, favorite catchers, favorite batters, and everybody knows that it's about who gets the votes that will get them that award at the end of the year. I want to just say congratulations no matter who gets it. Tonight, we have a short schedule for NBA basketball, and I know we were talking earlier of how the Golden State Warriors, Big C, they got their first win at the Chase Center, and all of their starters were no one that was involved in their last 5 championship appearances when they were in the finals the last 5 years in a row. None of those guys were actually on the floor for this game for the Golden State Warriors. They even had San Francisco across their jerseys, so it's just a great event for the Golden State Warriors. Tonight you have the Indiana Pacers at the Hornets, Charlotte Hornets. The Celtics at the Cavaliers. These games are already underway. The Spurs at the Hawks. I like the way the Hawks are playing as a young team. Most likely will be a playoff team this year. You have the Lakers at the Bulls. The Lakers are amazing right now. They dropped that first game at home. Well, I guess you can't call it at home. They were playing the Clippers, and they both were playing down at Staples. But they look really good so far. The Magic at the Thunder. The Heat at the Nuggets, Big C. Give me your feeling on NBA basketball. I know you like to wait until the holidays are wrapped up before you start focusing on who might get into a playoff spot. But just, for Golden State to knock off Portland last year in the Western Conference Finals, and then Portland gave them their first win at the new Chase Center, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as you said, it's early in the NBA season. Things are starting to move already. Sean Collins got a 25-game suspension with the Atlanta Hawks. So the NBA is playing police early this season.
Yeah, they're playing police early. College basketball, it's amazing when you get into March Madness. Prior to that, there's so many players that you kind of know because they're on the Sports Center a lot. But back in the day when I was growing up, I remember the UNLV Running Rebels, the late Jerry Tarkanian, and they were always on TV because they were winning. And then there was always Duke. Duke's always been around. There was Michigan. Of course, UCLA, those great programs. So tonight, college basketball tips off, and maybe there's not a lot of household names yet. Zion Williamson spent 1 year down at Duke, and now he's in the NBA with the New Orleans Pelicans. But you have number 1 Michigan State actually, number 1 Michigan State versus number 2 Kentucky. And a lot of people would love to see this at March Madness in the final game, Big C. But give me your thoughts. And does that make you happy that college basketball is back? Your thoughts?
Well, college basketball gets it right, Charlton. They play their top teams against each other early throughout the season. You don't get cupcake schedules like you do in college football, where a number 1 team such as Alabama hasn't played any top-ranked team all year long.
Yeah, well, until this weekend, Big C, but you'll get your chance to talk about that also. I want to bring up another program that's been a staple of college basketball. And you always say, how they get Lou Alcindor to go to UCLA, and how they get who's that what's the good boy that went to Kansas? Was it Wilt Stilt?
Wilt Chamberlain.
Wilt Chamberlain went to Kansas and has all the records in the world. In fact, all the records in the universe. And he went to Kansas, not UCLA, not Duke. But you have number 3 Kansas versus number 4 Duke. And of course, it's preseason, but that's a very sexy matchup for college basketball. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the top 4 teams playing tonight, Charlton, and they're all playing in Madison Square Garden, this is the first time since 1992 that the top 4 ranked teams in the country have played on opening night together.
Yeah, it's amazing to see that. You got another program I remember Louisville when they had all the scandal down there with their head coach, and who knows, it's amazing when you get a coach who's punished for doing what a lot of people are doing, and everybody knows about it, but nobody wants to admit it, Big Z. But number 5, Louisville playing Miami, which is still nowhere near the power that they could be being down there in Florida. Your thoughts?
Well, the ACC, Miami is moving up in the rankings there, but when you think about the top 5 teams opening up the season tonight in college basketball, Charlton, and all of those teams have won multiple national titles.
Yeah, they really have. It's good to see college basketball on top again. Number 6, Florida versus North Florida. I remember the Florida Gators that knocked UCLA out of the championship a couple of many moons ago, but I remember that you would just think, why isn't Florida always the perennial power? They have their hits and misses like a lot of other people, but they're playing North Florida tonight. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about the development of college basketball in Florida. You spoke about the University of Miami. Florida State has had a solid program in the ACC over the past several years. And the University of Florida, when Billy Donovan was coaching down there, they were the last team to win back-to-back NCAA titles.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen with college basketball this year. Number 7, Maryland. We know how their football program got up to a great start. I remember back in the day when I heard the tragedy of the late Len Bias that was drafted by the Celtics and had a tragic ending to his short life. But that was a great program back then, and it's good to see them at number 7 this year. They're playing Holy Cross. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they're one of those top-ranked teams in the Big Ten. When we think about the power of the Big Ten Conference in basketball, you got Michigan State, the number 1 ranked team in the country. Maryland's number 7.
It's amazing. A lot of these programs are on the East Coast. where it seems that they just take maybe basketball more serious, and I think everybody has their own opinion about that. But I love when we come out to the West Coast, and again, just like football, you can say Oregon and Utah are the top two programs in the Pac-12, but they're small markets. When you go to basketball, you have Gonzaga. They're ranked number 8 in the country under Coach Few. They're playing Alabama State, but they're up there near Pullman, Washington, up there in the Palouse. But this is the team, just like Kansas. How do they get people to even find an airport up that way? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about this small program, Charlton is hidden up there in that wonderful city of Spokane. But you think about all the powerful teams in the Pac-12, Charlton, and the most dominant team in the West Coast is Gonzaga, not even a Power 5 conference.
Isn't that amazing? It's just about sometimes I think players want to get out of the big cities. In fact, do we have any major programs in New York? I mean, Syracuse is not New York City, but you would think that for Villanova, obviously they're out of Philadelphia, but you don't have UCLA, USC. You know, they're still in rebuilding progress. So, I mean, Dallas, when you look at down in Dallas, you don't have anyone out of that city that's really one of the top Power 10 programs, Big C. Number 10, Villanova, they're playing Army. Villanova, I remember Rolly Massimino when they had a chance to win themselves a national championship, and I think they knocked off Georgetown back in the day. But it's always good to see Villanova at the top because they're always hanging around the top. And doesn't the coach he won't wear a suit unless it costs more than $2,000, I believe, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, he's delivered for the program, Charlton. He's won national titles since he's been there in Villanova. When you talk about the great teams in the Northeast, they were part of that Big East Conference, Charlton, that was so illustrious in college basketball back in the 90s, and they've kept that power ranking since that conference disbanded.
Yeah, it's always part of what we love about seeing these same programs. It would be great if we had from the West Coast again. I know Oregon, they've become a top program. University of Washington, they're a top program. Arizona is always a top program. I don't know if they'll ever have what they had with the great Lute Olson, but they're still a team that can get recruits to come out and play basketball on the West Coast. Earlier today, Big C, we had number 16 Baylor. They defeated Central Arkansas 105-61. And isn't Baylor University an undefeated football program? Now they're ranked 16 in the country for basketball. That's looking like one of the sexier places in the state of Texas to play sports, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they made it to the Sweet 16 in the tournament last year, Charlton. They've got one of the top women basketball programs in college basketball, and we see that the football team is challenging for the Big 12 title. So that Baylor athletic program is on healthy ground down in Waco.
Yeah, they really are an unhealthy program. And I love the way we bring in NFL football, some college basketball, got some Major League Baseball award talk about who's going to be where. And it's really exciting to have so much happening in the world of sports going on. And, of course, NBA basketball, very exciting, too. Talking about that as college basketball is tipping off, too. In fact, Big C Sports, you can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all around the universe on the #1 podcast network in the universe and the iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast Television, also launching on Roku TV, Apple TV, Fire TV, and many other smart TVs around the universe. Big C, I want to just get your thoughts on one more topic before we close the show for tonight. I know when we have so many choices, you know, soccer's always going on somewhere around the world. NFL football is an amazing thing. And then there's some stupid talk about the San Diego or the LA Chargers not staying with the LA market. They're going to stay in that market. The new stadium's coming. They'll get a lot of TV revenue about that. And there's always talk about what college football program is going to go where. But I want to get your thoughts when it comes to down south. Does college football or college basketball get more people riled up? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, college football is life in the South, Charlton, where it is nowhere else in this country. Everybody lives and breathes about what's going on. Every place else in the country seems to have other interests going on. But also, when you look at college basketball in the South, what other hotter place is there in the South? When you think about Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, Tennessee, Auburn, teams in the South, Florida, Charlton, that lead the nation in interest.
Yeah.
Louisville. Those are all Southern teams. You don't hear that type of banter across the country, especially on the West Coast, maybe up in the Midwest, Northeast, Charlton.
Yeah.
You get some of that. But college football and basketball right now, the king of the country is the southern part of the U.S.
Well, we love it all, and I really appreciate having the chance to talk about all. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble, Big C. What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, the college football first ranking comes out tonight for the playoffs, and they're going to put 6 teams up in the top bracket. They're going to start it out with LSU as number 1. They're going to put Ohio State at number 2. Alabama will be at number 3. Penn State will be at number 4. Clemson will be at number 5. Georgia will be at number 6. The reason for that bracketing, Charlton, because Ohio State and Penn State still have to play each other. LSU and Alabama are going to play each other this week. This is guaranteeing that you get 2 SEC teams in the college football playoffs.
And Minnesota's also playing Penn State, a lot of undefeated teams. And you can stay undefeated, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 or 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.